Hello there friends and welcome. Today we have an updated version of the best Divine Spells guide for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Just like the normal arcane spells, mastering Divine Spells will give you a way easier time. Unlike arcane ones, however, Divine Spells aren't as versatile, I'd say. They are mostly about buffing, healing your characters, and also removing nasty penalties like ability damage, level drain, and so on. But before starting, just a note, some spells are actually available to both arcane and divine spellcasters like Unbreakable Heart and the animal buffs. I've already covered a few of these in the best arcane selection you can find to the side here. As for other ones that you perhaps found missing in the previous guide, well, I'll cover them now because I prefer to use them as a divine caster, like Resist Energy Communal. So let's start. First with the level 1 spells, of course. First we have Bless, one of the earliest buffs to attack bonus. You get a +1 morale bonus to attack rolls, and because of how huge the area is, it can easily hit your whole party, at 1 minute per level duration. Now, because the bonus type is morale, it won't stack with, for example, Good Hope or Heroism. However, Bless is acquired way earlier than those, so it does have its uses, at least for a while. Divine Favor is another amazing buff, this time it's personal only, and while the duration is low at a static 1 minute, the effect can be quite good. You'll get a +1 luck bonus to both attack and damage for every 3 caster levels for a maximum of +3 at level 9. And as a low level spell, you can later have many castings of it. And because it's luck, you can even combine it with Bless, of course. Shield of Faith, meanwhile, is one of the best early game defensive buffs. As a matter of fact, it remains useful for the whole game, as it's always going to be the main source of deflection to armor class. It starts as +2, with an additional +1 for every 6 levels up to +5 at level 18. As far as Remove Fear, well, it's your main source of fear removal, right? Because it doesn't just remove fear from a very big amount of characters, party-wide even, it also has a buffing effect. It gives you a +4 morale bonus to saves, but only against fear effects, for 10 minutes to a lot even at the early game. Cure Light Wounds, of course, is going to be your main early source of healing outside of the Cleric's channel energy feature. Just remember that Clerics, they can always convert any of their spells into the equivalent cure ones. And as far as oracles, they have it on demand, right? So unless you were a shaman or a druid, I wouldn't bother memorizing Cure Light Wounds at all. Strand of the Tangled Knot is a new spell added by the Shifter DLC, which can help you when it comes to tanking. It has low duration at 1 round per level, and makes it so the next single attack against you will take a -10 penalty. If it is a critical hit, it will be then treated as a normal hit instead for less damage. Just remember, this will only be applied for a single attack. Now, nature casters also have some very nice and exclusive divine spells. By nature, I mean classes like Shaman, Druid, and of course Ranger, Hunter too. First, Lead Blades. This one is only for Ranger and Hunter. Well, it essentially increases the size of your weapons, which then results in higher base damage. Because it will stack with other increases to size, like from a large person and you want as high base damage as possible, it's a very welcome addition. You also get Hurricane Bow, which is the same but for ranged characters. And most importantly, Aspect of the Falcon. It grants you bonuses to Perception, a +1 competence bonus to ranged attacks, which is kinda rare. Best part is, it increases both the critical damage and the critical chance of your bows and crossbows. Do note that it will not stack with the improved critical feat, however that comes way later. Acid Maw can be somewhat handy too, it only works on pets that have bite attacks, empowering them with minor acid damage. Against a lot of demons it won't work because they have energy resistance against acid, but for a lot of the humanoid enemies, especially the cultists, is another great source of damage. Now let's get into our level 2 best divine spells. First with Aid. Aid will also grant you a +1 morale bonus to attack rolls just like Bless, meaning they won't stack as far as this effect. But here's the best part. It's a great source of temporary hit points, just like the False Life and Greater False Life spells from wizards and sorcerers. And remember, sources of temporary hit points will stack, so long as they aren't the same spell or ability. Find traps can be useful too, as it will increase your perception for purposes of finding traps, with a bonus as insight equal to half your caster level for a maximum of +10. Because clerics at the very least tend to have high wisdom, they can get even more perception through this buff. Lesser Restoration is a must-have healing spell. While it won't actually recover hit points, it will remove a lot of annoying effects such as 1d4 points of ability damage and even fatigue. Do note that it will not work on permanent ability drain and also level drain. Still, it's going to be your main source when it comes to recovering from ability damage. Remove Paralysis, on the other hand, is the main way of, well, recovering from paralysis, especially from spells like Hold Person. The same as Remove Fear, however, because both spells are rather cheap. When it comes to the Scroll variant, you might as well just buy scrolls of them instead. Especially because then if you have a character with ranks into Use Magic Device, they can still use these spells even if they aren't a Divine Caster like a Cleric. Last but not least, we have Resist Energy, the main way of protecting your characters from elemental damage. The duration is huge at 10 minutes per level, and any target will gain 10 points of resistance, which can be any of the main elemental types. The best ones certainly being fire and electricity. Mostly fire. Even at just the first level, it's already 10 points you are ignoring from any elemental source you choose, but the effect gets even stronger. It will increase to double that at level 7 for 20, and even 30 points for level 11. Because there's no limit to energy resistance, it means that while you're under the duration of the buff, no matter how many fire effects and abilities the enemies throw at you, you'll always ignore 30 points. While Shield of Faith is mostly exclusive to Oracles and Clerics, and increases your AC as Deflection, Barkskin is for the Nature Divine Casters like Shaman, Druid and Ranger, and it increases your AC as Natural Enhancement for up to +5, another great benefit as opposed to Shield of Faith, although ideally you want both due to the different types, is that Barkskin has extreme duration at 10 minutes per level, so even early game it will last you more than enough. Now it's time to cover the best level 3 divine spells. Starting with Prayer. Prayer has dual uses. First, it can be a way of buffing your allies, with a +1 luck bonus to attack, weapon damage, saves and even skill checks quite loaded. On the other hand, enemies that are inside the area will take that as a penalty. Now, because of the way buffing works in the game, ideally you want to use this as a means of pre-buffing, that is, don't bother casting it during battle. This will be your main source of luck bonuses, but of course, as a Divine Caster yourself, you can just use Divine Favor instead. It's more for other classes in your party. Archon's Aura is my second favorite level 3 Divine spell. It grants you an aura of 20-foot radius, and to put it simply, any enemy will have to make a will saving throw or take a quite nasty penalty, -2 to both attacks, saving throws and even armor class. Do note that it automatically bypasses spell resistance, which is even better. Of course, the enemy has to fail the DC, which depending on your character might not be high, unless you empower it through meta magic like Heighten. However, because it's essentially a free effect, right, you can cast it before battle with 1 minute per level, the aura will stay with you. The enemies have to basically just move towards you to be affected by this. That's what makes it so good. Chances are some of the enemies will always end up failing the save. Remove Disease can be useful too to help cure disease effects, which can be very annoying because a lot of the diseases in the game, they can last for days, just like in real life. Remove Curse can also help, because curse effects are super annoying, they last permanently unless you use this spell, and casting it from scrolls is a bit tricky unless you are Naniel, who gets a special boost from her class. Delay Poison Communal is another must-have divine buff. First, it's party-wide, has amazing duration at 1 hour of real time, and well, it prevents poison, right? Including from effects like Stinking Cloud, any spell that has the poison descriptor, but most importantly enemies that have poison on hit effects like spiders, as usual. Trust me, you can't go wrong with this one. Magical Vestment, on the other hand, is your main source of armor enhancement. Armor works like this: you have a base armor value, which is the same as the mage armor spell, and then an enhancement value. This is what Magical Vestment will increase. They can work together for even higher bonuses to AC. It's essentially the same as the Greater Magic Weapon spell. A +1 bonus to your character's armor enhancement for every 4 caster levels at a maximum of +5 at 20, with huge duration too. Nowadays this spell actually needs armor to work, right? If you are unarmored, for example if you are a pet, or wearing robes, this spell won't work anymore. Resist Energy Communal is also amazing because, well, it's the party-wide version of Resist Energy, and I've already covered how great that is. Just remember the duration is lower at 10 minutes, but you can easily make it into 24 hours. We also have another spell to resist elemental damage, Protection from Energy. Protection from Energy will grant you an energy shield of sorts. The main difference is while Resist Energy provides a static amount of reduction, so long as the spell is in effect, no matter how many times you absorb damage, Protection does have a cap. It can absorb 12 points per caster level for a maximum of 120 at level 10. And once this energy shield of sorts is fully depleted, well, the spell will stop working. Ideally, you just want to have both on your characters because you can easily afford it, so that even if Protection wears off, you'll still benefit from Resist Energy. Soothing Mud is another favorite nature-exclusive spell, as it has an area of effect and can restore 1d4 points of ability damage from allies just once per cast, however. It even ever so slowly restores hit points too, but it's mostly for ability damage removal. Now let's get into our best level 4 divine spells, starting with the ultimate one, Crusader's Edge. This is easily the best weapon buff in the game. It affects any melee weapon, including natural attacks from pets or shifter forms, for example. Will not work on ranged weapons, however. And here's the effect. First, it adds Evil Outsider Bane to your weapon, which means the weapon's enhancement value is now +2 better than its actual bonus, meaning it will stack. For example, my scimitar is +5, +7 against Evil Outsiders because of Bane. It also adds Irresistible 2d6 extra points of damage per hit. And well, yes, it's only against Evil Outsiders, but get this, demons are Evil Outsiders, right? The most common, most powerful enemies in the game are all Evil Outsiders. Anyways, this spell does even more, because whenever you get a critical hit against an Evil Outsider, the enemy will automatically become nauseated. There's actually an issue with this, because the way Allcat coded the nauseate effect, as far as I'm aware, well, they made all demons immune to it because they classified it as a poison effect, which I personally don't think it's right. I mean, there's nothing about Crusader's Edge that states it's meant to be poison, right? It's just a good spell descriptor here. You should be able to nauseate demons with this, right? I mean, why would it be on the spell otherwise? In any case, even if the enemy saves against this, the DC won't be high, they'll still be sickened for 1 round automatically, and demons aren't immune to sickened, which means a -2 to their attack rolls and saving throws, quite good regardless. Death Ward is a pretty handy buff to have too, as it will be your main source of preventing level drain, one of the most annoying debuffs, together with some negative energy effects. Now do note that unlike Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, it will not make you immune to death effects, however, you only gain a morale bonus to saving throws against them. Ideally, you want to save this for when fighting against undead enemies. They are the ones that usually go for level drain, outside of very specific demons like the Nabasu and also the Vrolikai. Level 4 has a lot of useful buffs. For another one, we have Freedom of Movement. It has very high duration, 10 times that of Death Ward, and well, it's your main source of becoming immune to a lot of nasty effects. Most importantly, Paralysis, Slow, Web, and even against grapple. Restoration is a great pick too. It's just like lesser restoration except it does more. For starters, it's the main way of removing level drain, right? Negative levels, which lesser doesn't do, together with restoring all temporary ability damage and even ability drain too, together with exhaustion besides just fatigue. Don't forget, level 4 is when Divine Casters get the communal party-wide version of protection from energy, so ideally you kinda want to use both the communal protection and resist variants. Lastly, we have Divine Power, a big upgrade over Divine Favor. It essentially does the same, except has a higher cap, +6 instead of +3. Of course, because both are luck bonuses, they won't stack with themselves. It also grants your character an extra attack, but it doesn't stack with haste, so it doesn't matter much, because eventually your party will be buffed 24/7 with haste anyways. Now let us cover the best level 5 divine spells, starting with Burst of Glory. Party-wide too, but has somewhat short range, so be sure to gather your allies for this. The duration isn't the best, but there aren't that many great level 5 spells, so honestly you just want to focus into this. Together with, for example, Prayer at level 3, which is also part of why I go with double divine casters, usually Social and Darren. Because my main character for this group is already an Oracle, I didn't get Darren here. Anyways, Burst of Glory is the main source of increasing your attack rolls as Sacred, for a +1 bonus and also temporary hit points. Greater Command can be a great crowd control effect too, if you aren't an arcane caster who can just use hideous laughter with best jokes. It works just like the command spell, except has 1 round per level duration, and the enemy has to make a new save every round to break free from the effect. If you choose the Halt variant of Greater Command, the enemies will just stand there doing nothing. It's really good. Spell resistance can be a nice buff too. It grants, well, spell resistance equal to 12 plus your caster level to any ally. Just remember that the toughest of Wrath enemies, especially the Mythic Demons, they have such high caster level checks to beat spell resistance that chances are they will hit you with the effects, unless you are a Merged Angel. Because this way you'll get a massive boost to caster level. I have 28 here, meaning you can achieve spell resistance values that are enough to resist almost all of the spells. Unless you know you're fighting the final boss or unfair, but that's a very exceptional case. My character here, for example, has 43. If I were to cast it with Social, who's just a level 20 cleric, I would only get 32, nowhere near as good, because these extra 10 points or so are exactly at the threshold that makes resisting spells late game easier. Now it's time to talk about the resurrection spells, first with Raise Dead. It does have a hefty material component, diamonds, which can be expensive, but well, it lets your character be brought back from death, right? Because unlike a lot of other RPGs, if your character dies in battle, they're, well, dead permanently, unless you use a Raise Dead spell to bring them back. It has very high casting time, kinda hard to do it during battle. The character brought back will have a very low amount of hit points, and even a negative level, which you'll then have to remove through, for example, restoration. Still, you know, it's the way to bring allies back from death. It's not like you have much choice. Well, you actually do. For example, Breath of Life. Unlike Raise Dead, it does not have a material component at all, and the casting time is just a standard action, half that of Raise Dead. However, it has a major limitation. Raise Dead can work no matter how many hit points damage your characters took, because your hit points can go into negative. Breath of Life can only work based on 2 limits. First, it has to be used upon 2 rounds of the character dying. Second, it will cure 5d8 points of damage plus 1 point per caster level for a maximum of 25. If this is enough to restore the character's hit points from negative, they'll be revived. On the other hand, let's say your character has minus 200 hit points. This won't help, right? Because there's no way to restore enough with Breath of Life. Still, it's a handy tool to have because for a lot of cases, you'll be able to bypass having to bother with Raise Dead and its pricey material cost. Animal growth is quite the respectable buff too. As the name itself implies, it only works on animals, like your pets of course. It's actually so good that nowadays it even provides a stacking source of natural armor class. But of course there's also the massive +8 size bonus to strength, +4 to constitution, and the base damage increase from size together with reach. Just like Enlarge Person, except it works on pets. Aspect of the Wolf is another handy nature spell. The bonuses to stats don't matter much, outside of the +2 enhancement bonus to trip, which is extremely rare. But anyways, the best part is the character will be able to perform a trip combat maneuver as a swift action, meaning they essentially have a free trip attempt for each round, while still retaining the ability to perform their full attacks. Trip can knock the enemies down, which is, well, as you might know from the Grease spell, amazing. Alright, now let's get into the best level 6 divine spells. Starting with Heal. Heal is the ultimate single target, well, healing spell in the game. It's definitely way better than any of the Cure Wounds line, because it not only heals your character for a huge amount, 10 hit points per level for a maximum of 150 at level 15, it has a built-in debuff removal effect too, curing you from ability damage, blindness, confusion, exhaustion, disease, fatigue, nauseated, poison, sick and stunned. It really does almost everything besides level drain. Right, for that you still need restoration or later greater restoration, as I will soon show you. Second, we have Eaglesoul, another great self buff, because of the type of bonuses it provides you despite the low duration. A +2 sacred bonus to armor class, together with +4 to strength. And even a +2 to initiative checks as well, together with 2 regeneration. And the ability to automatically confirm any critical hits against evil creatures. As I said, sacred bonuses are extremely rare, which means they'll stack with everything else. Now, you do get a debuff if you cast the spell as a non-good character, but so long as you are protected by freedom of movement, you will not get hit with the stagger debuff. So who cares, right? Energy Communal is amazing too. I mean, you do get a single target version at level 5, but I would honestly just wait for the party-wide version at 6. Well, when your characters are under True Seeing, they can automatically bypass enemy concealment sources from illusion, together with the ability to detect invisible creatures. It really is a handy buff to have. Harm is somewhat the opposite of Heal. I wouldn't bother using it for damage though. It's just here in case you want to heal your undead allies for a huge amount. Lastly, we have Inspiring Recovery. It's the exact same logic as Breath of Life, except the hit point restoration property is higher, right? We have 10d8 here, as opposed to 5d8 plus 25. The limitations are pretty much the same. Now let's cover the best level 7 divine spells. Unfortunately, this level is rather poor for divine characters. All of the Holy Word line of spells and its other alignment variants like Blasphemy for Evil and Dictum for Lawful and so on, because they are based on the enemy's hit dice, you need to fully specialize into this for them to work, and even then it appears some enemies are immune anyways. Enemies in Wrath tend to have very bloated hit dice scores. It's essentially their level, so I don't really recommend it. Resurrection, of course, is the big brother to Raise Dead. The material component is twice, but it will bring the character back to full hit points, and without level drain too. I would rather use this from Scrolls, however. We also have the greater variant of Restoration. Well, while the normal Restoration has, for example, a cap on the amount it can restore per cast, when it comes to negative levels, Greater Restoration does not suffer from this limitation. It can remove all negative levels at once, together with healing you from some other annoying effects like Insanity, Confusion, Exhaustion, Fatigue, and so on. I would rather use heal for these purposes, however. It's mostly for level drain, and ability damage and drain too. Now, nature casters actually get a very special level 7 spell, Creeping Doom. It lets you summon a lot of creepy crawlies, 4 spider swarms. If you've played Kingmaker, then you know how annoying and busted spider swarms are. First, they don't have to roll to hit the enemy. They are limited to 1 attack per round, but all they have to do to always hit the enemy is basically touch them with their hitbox, right? That's it. And you can summon 4 at once. Summons in Wrath are unlimited, so you can actually have as many as you want. All will always hit the enemy once per round. Second, and this is what makes it the best defensive summon in the game, spider swarms are actually immune to physical damage, that is, damage from weapons, which means they won't die easily unless the enemy is spamming area of effect abilities against them, something that's not really common. Its best uses are when combined with the also quite overpowered Paladin's Mark of Justice ability, because it will work for all of your summons, which means your nasty always hitting spider swarms will now deal extra damage per hit, equal to your Paladin's class levels for a maximum of plus 20, together with also automatically bypassing any damage reduction and immunity the enemy might have. It's really a good combo, and can melt even the toughest of enemies in the game on unfair. Rather silly, but certainly very fun and powerful. Level weight divine spells are kind of a bummer too, but at the very least you have one of the best buffs, Shield of Law. It heals your whole party, and while it gives you some minor bonuses like deflection and resistance saving throws, you can get them way higher from other sources. The main benefit is this: it will protect all of your allies from mind-affecting spells and effects used by chaotic creatures, such as all demons. You can't really go wrong with this. Sadly, as I mentioned, the other level 8 divine spells are quite underwhelming, outside of course of Frightful Aspect, which I covered in the arcane version of this guide. Now at last we are at the level 9 divine spells. If you thought the level 9 arcane spells were underwhelming, well, wait until you see the level 9 divine ones, because for starters we barely have any, right? It's Energy Drain, Polar Midnight, Winds of Vengeance, Mass Heal, and that's pretty much it, outside of some other spells you can get from domains and so on. I have no idea why they only bother implementing such a small amount of high-level divine spells. Especially because they are the same as the ones in Kingmaker, right? We didn't get any new one. Here's hoping that will change eventually. But anyways, the best pick here is definitely Mass Heal. If you thought Heal was good, well, imagine a party-wide version of it. Just be careful because it also hits enemies if you cast it during battle. But you can just properly aim the spell as you only hit your allies. The hit points cap is also way higher than the normal heal for 250 instead of 150. Outside of Winds of Vengeance, which is mostly for movement speed, well, it's really just going to be Mass Heal. Well, at the very least, Mass Heal is so powerful that it kinda makes up for the rest being underwhelming. Don't forget to combine it with Greater Quicken Meta Magic Rods, so you can cast it instantly, right when you most need it, and even combine it with another normal version of it on the same round. Well, alright friends, so this was it from my updated Best Divine Spells guide. If you found this video useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.